No poll should be aired without clear disclosure of methodology, sample size, funding sources, and the margin of error. Done responsibly, exit polls can reduce noise and deepen understanding. Done irresponsibly, they become political theatre masquerading as science, or worse still, simply a business deal.
Views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal, and do not reflect the views of any organization.
Namaskar, hello and welcome friends to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. The exit polls for the battle of 2026 are now done and dusted. All eyes therefore are on the results that will be on the 4th of May, that's on Monday. But I want to cut the chase today and ask the same question I asked after the 2024 Lok Sabha election results differed so sharply from the predictions made by all the overconfident pollsters of 400 par. Should exit polls, my friends, exit? Let me begin with a story that explains why I again asked that question today. On the day the latest exit polls for Tamilnadu, West Bengal, Kerela, Assam and Puducherry were being aired, I got a call while I was live on television. The caller on my WhatsApp asked if I could carry his exit poll numbers. I knew him as a communication strategist working for one of the political parties that was contesting the elections. So when did you become a pollster? I asked him. Sir, you know I also do some polling on the side, he replied. I told him I would consider carrying his numbers in a poll of polls only if he disclosed his sample size, methodology, and more importantly, his political affiliations and advisory role. Guess what? He never got back to me. But sure enough, a few minutes or later, I saw his numbers flashing across multiple television channels. And I asked myself, did anyone do any due diligence before putting those numbers out? Did any channel or newspaper ask the most basic questions on methodology? I fear the answer is no. Which is why I am no longer surprised, my friends, when exit polls throw up widely varying predictions, especially in closely fought, highly competitive election states. The truth, my friends, is that the serious science of polling or psephology has increasingly been overtaken by fly-by-night operators who see elections or election polling as a shortcut to instant visibility, commercial opportunity, or worse, a way of manufacturing the right perception ahead of counting day. Or, as our netas would say, mahal banana hai, sahi mahal banana hai, get a pollster to do it. Please understand, polling costs money, particularly a good poll. And we need to know what is the source of funding for many of these so-called pollsters. All of this is a far cry from the world I entered when I entered journalism and started covering elections in the late 1980s. Back then, elections were about ground reportage, political instincts, judging the voter mood. It was not a race to flash the fastest graphics on primetime TV. It was Dr. Pranoy Roy, Dorab Sopariwala and Ashok Lahiri who pioneered nationwide opinion polling in India in the 1980s. Those surveys, often done for reputed magazines like India Today, were rigorous, transparent, and methodologically honest. Sample sizes and limitations were openly disclosed. They didn't always get it right, but you could never doubt the seriousness of the exercise. Then came 2004, when most pollsters got the general election badly wrong while predicting an Atal Bihari Vajpayee-led BJP NDA victory. Dr. Pranoy Roy himself appeared so disillusioned at the time that he decided to step away from the numbers game altogether. When I moved to CNN IBN, I brought in Yogendra Yadav and the CSDS team. They were academics first, pollsters only second, and they brought intellectual rigor and credibility to the entire process. We consciously shifted from doing same-day instant exit polls, which can resemble a T20 lottery at times, to doing post-poll surveys where researchers actually went to people's homes and conducted numerous face-to-face interviews. The advantage of this was simple. Unlike an exit poll, which is rushed out with numbers being put out within minutes of the voting ending, a post-poll survey gave researchers time to assess the trends more carefully. Remember, this is a country where the total vote in a general election, for example, is 1 billion people. Can you really do an exit poll so quickly, particularly when a number of voters are lined up till late in the evening? Let me be honest. Even in the post-poll exercise, we got several polls right, but some wrong, but never for lack of effort. Later at India Today, we discovered another star pollster, my friend Pradeep Gupta of Axis My India. Yes, the same Pradeep Gupta who, when he would get the polls right, he and I would do a little jig in the studio, something that I realize now was eminently avoidable. I've written about Pradeep Gupta also in my 2024 election book, The Election That Surprised India. Because here was a first generation entrepreneur who began interestingly in printing technology, moved into market and consumer research, and eventually found his way into polling. What I appreciated about Pradeep was he was transparent. He never hid the fact, for example, that the BJP had picked him up as their pollster, and therefore the BJP in a sense was his client. In fact, he made it clear later that once the BJP became his client, he would avoid opinion polls and focus only on exit polls where the voting had already concluded. Like every serious pollster before him, he too got some elections spectacularly wrong. Bengal, Tamilnadu, Haryana 2024, and of course the 2024 Lok Sabha election, where he predicted, like everyone else, a sweeping NDA victory that never materialized. Many remember, of course, from then the moment that Pradeep Gupta broke down emotionally on live television after all those results. But to be fair to him, I believe the tears were genuine. Pradeep had made a serious effort. He believed in his numbers. He got them wrong. But at least there was a methodology that he offered, including number of people that he had polled, groups, caste groups that he had polled, education, qualification, gender, etc. It was a representative sample. And that brings me to the heart of the matter, my friends. Polling in India is extraordinarily difficult. This is a country of over 1.4 billion people. Over 1 billion people are eligible to vote. Multiple languages, multiple castes, multiple regional realities. Elections here are not an arithmetic sum. A poll is not an exact mathematical equation. At best, it can capture the direction of the public mood. Which is why maybe focusing on vote share is often safer than obsessing over seat projections. Translating votes into seats in a first past the post system is where even the best pollsters can collapse dramatically. So then you might well ask, why have exit polls at all? Why not simply wait a few days more for the actual result? Fair question. And honestly, I don't have a perfect answer. Except this, a well-researched poll is still probably more useful than a television journalist claiming he has understood the Hawa after spending 48 hours helicoptering through a state like I have done at times. Let's be honest. Audiences are curious. Elections are part politics, part spectacle, and part national obsession. People want to know who is winning. India is hardly unique in that respect. And a well researched poll can give you a lot of insights into voter behavior. But the key phrase, my friends, is well researched. How many pollsters today can honestly say that they are conducting surveys with rigor, transparency, and independence? And when voting often stretches beyond 6 p.m. with voter turnouts, how can an exit poll aired within minutes of the polling closure genuinely capture at times the voter mood unless the sampling is exceptionally robust? The truth, therefore, my friends, is what began as a passion project for a handful of serious researchers and academics has now become a business opportunity for many. It is the political parties who now pay for these polls often more than any media channel ever would. After the 2024 elections, there was even speculation that exit poll numbers may have been influenced by stock market behavior and led to windfall profits for some investors.
Interestingly, when I asked one of the pollsters to give me a breakdown of district wise distribution of seats, as well as the sample size and the methodology, this pollster did not reply again. And I'm now told that this particular pollster is also allegedly involved with a large betting racket which plays on the exit poll predictions right up to results day in collaboration with a senior politician.
Much of that remains unproven. But the only way to restore credibility is through far greater transparency. No poll, repeat no poll, should be aired without clear disclosure of methodology, sample size, funding sources, and the margin of error. Numbers cannot be simply thrown on a screen without context, disclaimers, or scrutiny. And I want to say this as a confession. Personally, I must confess that while elections still excite me and even consume me, exit polls no longer do. Maybe age is making me more and more cynical. Maybe I sound increasingly like an old school journalist complaining about a rapidly changing media landscape. But I genuinely believe everyone involved, pollsters, channels, editors, and political parties, need to seriously introspect. Can polling contribute meaningfully to understanding voter behavior? Absolutely. But perhaps the focus should shift back towards qualitative insights and voter trends instead of turning elections into a prime-time numbers carnival, or dare I say, a prime-time lottery. Let me also say this today. Will Vijay become king or kingmaker in Tamilnadu? Or is Mamta Banerjee losing Bengal to the BJP badly? I simply smile and say, I honestly don't know. Because I genuinely don't, my friends. And I suspect most pollsters don't know either. Which is why this brings me back to my original question. Should exit pollsters exit? Maybe yes. At least until we realize that polling cannot become, as I repeat, a prime-time lottery sport or another game of chance. Or as they say in my home state of Maharashtra, a tamasha. The stakes are simply too high for uncertain numbers to shape the political narrative. And finally, let me give you a quick postscript. Let me take you back to 1995. I was at NDTV covering the Gujarat elections at the time, the election that the BJP won for the first time there. At the last minute, then Chief Election Commissioner T.N. Seshan issued a stern order banning exit polls on the grounds that they could influence voters. I think Seshan was wrong. Exit polls don't influence voters because by then the votes have already been cast. What they can influence, however, is the quality of our public discourse. Done responsibly, exit polls can reduce noise and deepen understanding. Done irresponsibly, they become political theatre masquerading as science or worse still, simply a business deal. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we chose news over noise. Think about it. That was the straight bat. Do, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind. Namaskar.